Good afternoon, everybody. I am Paula Ludwig with the Atlantic Institute. Our organization is all about having peaceful dialogues, and we hope that our vision is of a peaceful world. So one of the ways we do that is the tour of faiths we have going on. And we have Emily Rundle Evans today that's going to talk about her missionary trip with us. But first, I'm not sure I know where everybody's from. So if you put in your chat where you're from, we have an advisory board and our boss who likes to see how far we're reaching out into the world with our programming. And so I keep track of this. Last year we had 21 different countries and 40 states that of people that we knew that joined our programming last year. And so we just asked that if you put that in the chat here, I don't need an address exactly, just yes, Greenville, Simpsonville, South Carolina, New York. Awesome. Emily, where are you coming from? Oh, you're the one in Greenville. Okay. Yes, this is awesome. This just helps show the bosses that we need to keep expanding. We just hired 10 other program event planners this last month. And so we're going to have a lot more programming going on starting in September. So be on the lookout for that. And if you know of anybody who lives in the mountain time zone, we are looking to add at least one more person that lives in that time zone that wants to do event planning like this. No experience necessary. We are training all of our event planners because we have a way we like to do it anyways. But we are looking. So if you know of anybody, have them contact myself or Christina, and we're good to go. All right, Emily, I am going to turn this over to you, and I'm going to spotlight you so that your stuff comes up only.
Great. Well, it's great to be here. It's great to meet with everybody. It's cool to see where everybody's from. My name is Emily Rundle Evans, and I originally am from kind of all over the US, but mainly the Midwest. And from the years 2017 to 2019, I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I was in Seoul, South Korea. So I'm gonna just kind of present a little bit on my experience. It's a lot of like the experience of serving a mission for as a young person in our church is very it's different for everybody, but there's also a lot of things that are the same. And so if any of you know somebody who served a mission, or you yourself have served a mission for our church, it's kind of there's a lot of things that are unique to the experience. So let me just screen.
Thanks for the link, Emily.
Yep. Okay. Pull this over. Sorry about this. Computer is being a little slow. Okay. I'm just going to, all right. So, yeah, so I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Seoul, South Korea, and I was there for 19 months. Typically it's 18 months, but I extended mine a little bit, my time there. And so, yeah, my mission was called the Seoul South Mission. So the way that it works is the whole country is divided up into different sections called missions. And that lighter green dot is kind of the area, the general region of the Seoul South Mission. It is the smallest, geographically the smallest mission in the country, but population-wise, it had the highest population. The other missions were way bigger, but they were in kind of more rural areas. So a lot of people that have served missions for our church maybe are in kind of more rural areas. For example, my husband was in Montana and was in towns that had, fewer than 1,000 people and stuff. But I was very much a city girl, like walking in the big city for my mission. So that was kind of my experience. But South Korea occupies about 62,000 square miles. The southern part of the Korean peninsula. It's about the same size, a little bit bigger than the state of Georgia. I spoke the Korean language on my mission, and Korea is a place that is very affected by Confucianism and Buddhism. Those are very much the dominant religions of the region, although Christianity is becoming more dominant, but I'll talk about that later.
We have a
So-
question. They want to
Yeah.
know, did you choose South Korea or were you assigned there?
Oh yeah,
And,
okay, yeah.
did you speak the language or did you have to learn it to learn it?
Okay, yeah. So I did not choose South Korea. I said, initially when I filled out my application to serve a mission, I indicated that I was willing to go overseas and I didn't have any major health issues that would make it so that going overseas would be, overly difficult. And I had said that I was open to learning another language. So I didn't choose South Korea, but I also didn't not choose South Korea. You know what I mean? I said I was open to all of it, but I didn't speak the language beforehand. That is, I think, my next slide. Yeah, so I did not speak the language beforehand at all. Turns out everybody else that went to the training center with me, they had all learned the alphabet already, and I hadn't. So for the first 2 weeks, I was completely clueless. I had no idea what was going on. And then I finally let somebody know. I was like, I don't know what's happening. And they were like, oh, you need to learn the alphabet. And I was like, okay. But so I spent 9 weeks in a missionary training center in Provo, Utah. So that was where we studied the language, we practiced teaching, and I was with other beginners. So everybody in my group, we were all learning the language together, and learning about what our experience would entail. And we were learning from people who had also served missions in Korea, or people who themselves were from Korea, Korean natives. So it's 9 weeks of full immersion in the language. I didn't hear English from my teachers at all the whole time, which was interesting. I met one of them afterwards and he spoke English to me, and it threw me for a loop. But that was definitely a great way to learn the language. And yes, I was definitely the kindergartner of my group. I was pretending to understand what was happening, and I was not understanding what was happening. After the 9 weeks, I flew with all of the other people in my group to Seoul, South Korea. So we landed in the Incheon airport, which was actually in our area. And I was there for actually about 17 months, but I was there for 17 months preaching the gospel, teaching English, fellowshipping members, and doing community service. So a little bit about missions. So in our church, for safety reasons, missionaries are always in pairs. Sometimes there's 3, but usually there's 2 pairs always working together. So from the time we begin our mission in the missionary training center to the time we leave, we're with a companion. And also we have a mission president. So when I flew to Korea, I was met by my mission president. So it's usually a couple. It's always a couple who lead the mission, and they serve as mentors, and they ensure safety and train us and just work side by side with us. My mission presidents were amazing. I love them. It was President and Sister Turner, and they were amazing. So yeah, I'm just forever grateful for them and their influence on my life. And then the mission itself is kind of broken up into 6-week intervals. We call them transfers. And because every 6 weeks, maybe you stay where you are, but you could transfer to a different area within your mission, or get a new companion that joins your area. So that's kind of how it works in the mission. The Korean language, it has Chinese roots, so a lot of the words are kind of similar to Chinese words, or they'll sound slightly similar, but it's not tonal. So that was one thing that I didn't have to learn, which was nice. Korean language is called Hangulmal, and it just means Korean speak. And there is an alphabet called Hangul. It's very simple to learn. It's very easy to learn. one of the easiest in the world. It was made by Song it was made by the king, Song Jae-wang, I think. And he made the alphabet and then in turn made the language and stuff. But actually the shape of the characters kind of matches the shape that you make with your mouth, which is interesting and makes it very user friendly, I would say. And then the language also has formalities and honorifics. So it doesn't have tones, but you have to speak differently based on who you're talking to. So I spoke in the middle language my entire time as a missionary, but most people fluctuate between all three of the languages, speaking to somebody who's older than you, speaking to somebody who's the same language as you, and speaking to somebody who's younger than you. And I spoke in, and then there's like a third higher one. So I didn't go to the third higher one, but I was speaking to, we spoke in the more honorified language the whole time. So the first thing that you need to know about Korean culture is food. Food is everything. I could have a bajillion slides on food because the Korean food is so good. I love Korean food. I eat it to this day. Just the other day I made Korean food. But I have this picture here. This was one of the best meals that I ate in Korea. I took a picture of it because I wanted to remember it because it was so good. But Korean food really is connection. In American Western culture, you talk while you eat, but in Korea, it's not necessary to talk while you eat. I learned that pretty early on, and it was great because I didn't understand what people were saying, but I could appreciate the food. And as you appreciate food together, you connect. And so food is a really, really big part of the culture and, making friends and getting to know people and stuff. The food is also very seasonal. So, oh, that was not what I meant to do, sorry. So they have obviously foods that they eat year round, but around the fall time, they eat specific types of food. In the winter time, they eat specific food. So that's always really fun. And another important thing about the food is to know about kimchi or fermentation. So kimchi isn't fermentation, but kimchi is fermented cabbage with spices. And a lot of their food actually is fermented. So the three, it's not limited to these, but the main food groups in Korea are rice, fermented vegetables, and meat. That's like everything kind of revolves around that. So I loved it. It was my favorite. I love Korean food so much. Korean barbecue is something that has made it to the States. So maybe you've tried Korean barbecue before. It's so delicious. I love it so much. But another really important thing to know about Korean culture and food is that you have to be open to trying new things. So that was one thing that my mother served a mission similar to this in Taiwan. And so as she raised us, she was like, you have to be able to try new things, just because she knew how much of an advantage it gave her in learning about a new culture. So there were a lot of new things that I tried, and some of them I liked and some of them I didn't like, but I really enjoyed trying new things. And that's just a very big key to adjusting to the culture. Yes, in Korea they eat with chopsticks. They actually have chopsticks that are not wooden and circle. They're metal and flat. And so they're kind of harder to use, actually. The ones you can see in this picture here are metal and round. They did use those sometimes, but typically they were kind of, they were more flat. So I don't really know how to describe that in another way. It's like the end, like two of the prongs of a fork, but bigger. So I had to learn how to use those. I already knew how to use them pretty well, but adjusting to the new style was definitely, it took some time.
Would it be maybe like tweezers but bigger?
Yeah, and not connected at the top.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's very, like, the point of contact is very small, and you have to be very precise with them. So some must-try dishes are kimchi. It is the fermented cabbage. It's with everything. I would say I had about 2 cups of kimchi every single day for 18 straight months while I was there. It was delicious. I loved it. Some people say it smells weird. I never thought it smelled weird. I just always loved it. But yeah. Another great meal is called jjajangmyeon. It's got like noodles with a black bean sauce. It was kind of like the fast food, not fast food, but it was like, oh, let's go indulge ourselves and get some jjajangmyeon. Kimbap was kind of like fast food. Like if you want some fries, they have fries over there. They have McDonald's and Burger King, but we would just like get kimbap if we were in a rush. And it's kind of like a sushi roll, but not with no raw fish. Tteokbokki is one of my very favorite foods in the whole wide world. It's little rice cakes and spicy sauce, and sometimes there's noodles in it, and sometimes there's an egg, and you can kind of change it up. Kimchi jjigae is just kimchi stew, and that is really popular because it's a very popular winter dish, but also during the war.
I'm eating a gallon of milk.
What was that?
Puja tomorrow. I'll keep it everything there.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry. So kimchi jjigae is like stew, and during the war, people were very poor, and so they would just make kimchi stew and put whatever they could in it. So it's a very popular dish. Bibimbap is like it's mixed rice, so it's just rice with a bunch of different vegetables and stuff. And I always say that it is kind of like Korean salad, because that's kind of how they eat it. It's like cold. So Korean culture regarding cities, I love the city. I'm a city person, but I thought it was so cool because there's different types of places that I lived. There's also rural areas, but I wasn't ever in a rural area. But they have the ancient architecture embedded in the cities. So this is a picture right here of a huge fortress. We lived right next to the fortress, and there was, it served as a traffic circle. So everybody would drive around the fortress, and it was so cool that they maintained it and they kept it, and it just was really awesome to see the ancient juxtaposed with the modern in the cities. And then there were areas that most of my mission was this middle picture. It's kind of like a village, but with a modern twist. So like a lot more people, but very close together, very, very like, walking through alleyways and stuff like that. You can see in that picture, I think you can see three church steeples, one right here, one right there, because there's a lot of churches in Korea, which I will get to after this. And then also in Seoul, it's very like futuristic cities, huge skyscrapers, and stores with no employees because everything's done by robots and stuff like that. So it's kind of it was a very fun place to learn about different places. And I grew up in the Midwest and kind of farm town, so it was fun to see the different types of cities. The homes are typically, there's apartments. Apartments can be skyscrapers with dozens of floors, or smaller buildings with 5 to 10 floors. But apartments usually have amenities. They even have sometimes convenience stores, doctor's offices, schools, daycares, parks, and other things like that, like in the complex area. Most people live in villas. It's just typically 2 to 4 floors, no lobby or amenities or anything like that. And then some people live in landed homes, but not very many. And the few landed homes that I saw, the architecture was also different. I couldn't even begin to generalize them, but not as common in the big city. So some really interesting aspects of Korean culture are age. So age is very, very important. And not necessarily your actual age, but the year that you were born is very interesting. When you meet somebody, they'll ask you right away, what year were you born, so that they know how to refer to you. If they need to refer to you as, older sister, younger sister, or by your name, or, older, every way to address somebody is based on their age. As missionaries, we just called people brother and sister with the honorified form. And so that honestly made it a lot easier to talk to people. Bowing is a really big part of Korean culture, and it's a way to show respect to others. At first, I kind of thought it was bizarre, and maybe in Western culture, we may view it as kind of weird, like, oh, you just bow to people like a king or somebody you worship or something. But it is very much an expression of appreciation and sincerity and just general respect. Not bowing when I came back to America was really difficult for me, not just because of a habit, but because it was how I expressed thanks to people sometimes, so it was weird to not be able to use that form of expression anymore. But another interesting piece of Korean culture is using two hands. So I will use my AirPods case. If I was to hand something to you, I would use two hands to hand it, or even I could just put my hand here, but both hands need to be making an effort towards the motion of giving something to somebody or accepting it. This just shows a level of effort, respect, and appreciation on both parts. It's kind of just something that you get used to, and it feels weird to not do it when you're there. So it wasn't too difficult to catch on to because you see everybody else doing it. So that was a little bit about Korean culture. And then my mission mostly was teaching English and performing community service. We were there obviously on a church mission and we were there to, preach the gospel and stuff, but sometimes that didn't always go very well. So we had, other ways to connect with people and to serve. So we taught English through a curriculum that was created by the church that focused on conversational English, building conversational English skills. And we taught those lessons 3 times a week at our church buildings. And those were just free to the public. And then we also taught one-on-one English to people who were willing to listen to a spiritual message. Those lessons were a little more catered. Sometimes people would want help with specific things like, oh, I'm working on this for my, class. Can you tutor me through it? And we would be willing to do that and just share a spiritual message. Our community service was so enriching. I loved our community service, and it was so different for each area. It was set up by the missionaries or the church members in the area, and it was so fun. In one area, we just helped an older lady bring her cardboard to the way station because and she could get money for collecting cardboard. And then in another area, we volunteered at a center for children with cerebral palsy, or kind of a what is it called? Like an occupational therapy type of rehabilitation center, and we would feed them and we'd sing to them and read and stuff like that. So we worked at lots of soup kitchens and things like that. So it was we did a lot of community service, I would say, about 10 or 12 hours a week, and so that was really very fun and great to get to know people that way and learn the language, because there's a lot of language that you don't learn as a missionary that you wouldn't naturally learn unless you're, in different types of situations. So serving a religious mission in Korea, it was very interesting. Korea is actually, although it is, Buddhism and Confucianism are kind of the basis of, they're kind of the original religions there. Christianity is one of the major religions, but there are so many Christian churches there, so many different, every type of church, every type of religion there. They call it, so in Korean, they call it the shopping mall for churches. I think that's all of Asia calls it that. So it's kind of like I was in the South, the Bible Belt of Asia. So it was really fun. There was a lot for us to learn about other churches and to learn about other people and their experiences, and it was really cool. Sometimes it caused a bit of some rifts and some not great feelings, but we always we always invited the opportunity to learn about other people. So Buddhism is obviously, like kind of the prevailing religion there. And while many have adopted Christianity, certain ancient cultural aspects still prevail. So it's kind of cool to see Christianity combined with some of the traditions of Buddhism. So there's still, a deep respect for ancestors that is kind of, looks more like the Buddhist way of respecting your ancestors. And it was cool to see how those kind of combined. But because of that kind of mixing pot, I guess, it makes it so the culture in general is very very focused on certain principles of Confucianism, certain principles of Buddhism that do not budge, and those are just like embedded in the culture. So it was really a unique thing to learn about. And then also because we were foreigners, we were Weigukins, many people were very kind and respectful, and they wanted to understand why we were there, and they wanted to be friends with us. And sometimes they didn't want to hear about what we were doing, but we loved getting to meet new people. And we definitely had a little bit of an advantage to be able to strike up conversations with people and have people be like, oh my goodness, where are you from? Like, you're clearly not Korean. So so that was really fun. So the picture on the left and the picture on the right are of me and my companions with some older, they call them grandmas, some harmonies on my mission. And the one on the left, this lady, she just lived by us, and every time we'd see her, she would ask to take a picture with us, and we would talk to her for a little bit. And then the one on the right was the grandmother of somebody that we knew, and she asked us to go visit her. And I think we were supposed to go help her set up her TV, but instead she just fed us a bunch of food. So I served a mission because I felt like I had been given so much and I wanted to give back in some way. Although I wanted to give back, the people that I met in Korea truly gave more to me, I feel, than I was even ever going to be able to give to them. They're such wonderful, loving people that are so kind, and I felt so much love from them and feel so much love for them because I got to learn about them and their experiences and the way that they look at the world, and they're just such wonderful people. So my mission taught me so much about myself, other people, hard work, service, and love. I feel like I would not be who I am today without having served a mission. Not only because of the religious, because of what I did. I studied for 3 hours a day. 2 hours of those were studying the scriptures, and for just personal study, and studying with my companion, and studying a language. It just shaped me to be who I am today, and it will continue to shape the rest of my life. Like I said, I still cook Korean food now, so it has had a very big impact on my life and the decisions I've made. So I'm so grateful for it. And if you know of anybody who has served a mission, or if you yourself served a mission, you know that it's really an unforgettable experience. So I would love to answer any questions if anybody has any. I don't know if, you guys might have questions, you might not, but that's 감사합니다, which is thank you in Korean. So I will stop sharing my screen and we can go into questions if there are any.
Does anybody have questions? That was amazing.
I was wondering, did you actually learn how to write those things? I mean, you could write a letter to somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, we were supposed to keep a journal from the very first day that we got to the training center, the missionary training center. And I've looked back on it, and my handwriting was terrible. It was so bad. I spelled everything wrong, but yeah, it's an alphabet just like in English. So I can still, because it's so simple to learn, I don't think I will ever not be able to read Korean. I can still read it, and there's never any question with pronunciation. In English, it's like, wait, how do you pronounce that? But there's never any question in the Korean language of how to pronounce it.
Each symbol has a sound.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes it much easier.
Definitely. Yeah. And I just saw Gail asked, were you only required to be a missionary to one country? Yes. So I stayed in that little part of Seoul. It was below the Han River and down to the military base. That was kind of like our circle of where we served. And I stayed in that area the whole time I was there. And what will be your field of work? So I actually currently work for Lutheran Services Carolinas. I work with refugees, resettling refugees. So I don't use my language unless North Korea opens up and there's refugees. I won't be able to use my language, but my appreciation for other cultures, would say has definitely came from my mission and helps me today in my line of work. So. And then Shirley has her hand raised.
I have a question. How did you learn how to cook the Korean food?
So I asked people how to how to help me cook it. So I would just, if they were like, hey, like we want to have you over for dinner, what do you want to eat? I would be like, actually, can you teach me how to make this food? And I also lived with Koreans. Some of my companions were Koreans, so I learned how from them. And yeah, I would say not everybody learned how to cook Korean food, but I love Korean food so much. So I was like, I have to be able to cook this at home. I was very determined.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Probably tteokbokki, the rice cakes. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's just like spicy sauce with rice cakes. And there's like fish cakes in there too and stuff. It's very easy, but it's delicious.
Do you make the fish cakes or do you buy them pre-made?
No, I buy them pre-made. I don't know how to make those, but there's some Asian markets nearby that I'm able to use. So. Another great fun thing that happened while I was there, the Pyeongchang Olympics started about 2 weeks after I arrived in Korea, but they were just on the other side of the river, so I never got to go. So we watched them on the TVs that we saw at restaurants and stuff. I still got a sweatshirt from it, so.
So I had a question. Okay, did you go to any other Asian countries? Did you see any difference between the two cultures? What I wanted to say that most of the South Asian countries have a similar culture. They are very nice people. I don't know why, maybe they face more problems than others. They're very good in giving you food, which is very important to them, etc., etc. And I see a lot of similarity between your experience and many of the countries in that area, Vietnam. They used to, at least what we know about the wars, but otherwise the culture is same. The people are similar in nature, the food. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it definitely, I didn't go to any other Asian countries, and I haven't been to any. I hope to go to some soon, but in my experience with, like you were saying, a lot of Southeast Asia, South Asia countries, North Asian, Central Asian, it's all very similar. And I think what was cool is to see the differences in this new culture, but also the similarities. Like everywhere you go, the principle of connecting. And I deeply firmly believe that connecting over food is so universal. It doesn't matter where you go, you can connect over food if you don't have anything else in common either. So I found a lot of similarities more than differences, I would say.
Yes, you should check out our Cuisine of Different Cultures series. This video will go on our Atlantic Institute SC YouTube channel. And we have over 170 videos out there, and some of them are Cuisine of Different Cultures, but we also do a new one every month. So if you guys haven't checked that out, you should. And I agree with Emily. it is always easier to learn new things and appreciate new things when your stomach is happy. So if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to end it for today, and I'm going to thank Emily very much. That was awesome. I really enjoyed your presentation. It was great. Anybody else?
Thank you. You're making me hungry. I want to eat Korean.
Yeah, for real. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Atlantic Institute, for having me. I appreciate it. And
I'm going to stop the recording now.